Tonight, it's a pre-gubernatorial question and answer with candidate Kari Lake, with radio talk show host and
Republican nominee Kari Lake and Democratic nominee Katie Hobbs, sponsored by Clean Elections, Arizona's voter education agency. Secretary Hobbs declined to come, and so the event became a 30-minute dialogue between Kari Lake and myself. With that, welcome Republican gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake. Welcome. You have 1 minute for an opening statement.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Mike, and thank you to the Clean Elections folks. I know they had to kind of move things around as we tried to make a debate happen with myself and my opponent, but unfortunately, she was not courageous enough to show up for the debate. But I want to talk to you, Arizona. It's so good to be back in your homes. Over the last 509 days, I've been in many of your homes on the campaign trail, working hard to listen to what your concerns are. And I understand this state. I'm so blessed. God gave me a great career to cover this state as an honest journalist for 30 years. When you recruited me to run, I decided to make sure that we have solutions to the problems we've had for a long time. And that's why we have a bold, aggressive plan to tackle some of the problems so that we can make Arizona the greatest state in the country. We're going to secure the border. We're going to make sure that our kids are properly educated, including making sure our kids have access to trade skill training and vocational training in high school so they're ready for the opportunities that are out there. We want to see Arizona growing, and we want to see Arizona becoming a state that is so attractive that everybody wants to come to Arizona, whether they're visiting or they want to move their business or families here.
All right, let's get into the questions. We built these questions based on a number of questions sent in to Clean Elections from voters across Arizona. Overwhelmingly, the number one question was asked was about voter integrity and election denial. So I just want to start to clear that up. Recently, you made a statement and said, when I'm governor, we're going to make sure that we have honest elections. Yep. What is it going to take to satisfy you that Arizona has honest and fair elections?
That's a great question, and I have not shied away from that question. When I was on the campaign trail, I said 509 days on the campaign trail. That's a top issue for Arizonans. They don't like how the elections have been run. They don't feel that their vote truly counted. They know that when they see the mailbox with 5 ballots and there's only 1 voter at their home, that gives them pause and makes them realize that there's a lot of ballots floating around out there that shouldn't be out there. So we're going to work to improve the voting system, clean up the voter rolls, make sure that we don't have mail-in ballots floating around in homes where there's only 1 voter and they're receiving 5 mail-in ballots, and make sure that when our votes are counted, they're counted properly in a very transparent way where we trust the system of voting. What that's going to take, it's probably going to take a lot, and I'll work with the legislature to make that happen. We want every voter, whether they're Democrat, Independent, or Republican, to go to bed on election night and know that their 1 legal vote counted, and know that whatever the result is, whether their guy won or their guy lost, that they can live with the results because they know that our election system is fair, honest, and transparent.
Would you want to end mail-in voting, or would you want to get rid of the tabulation machines and go to a total hand count only?
I want to make sure that the machines are counting fairly, and we've had major problems with the electronic voting machines. It's documented. And it's not just me saying this. Back in 2017, if you look on the internet, you can find probably 20 minutes of Democrats, from Hillary Clinton to Amy Klobuchar to Vice President Kamala Harris, saying that these voting machines, the electronic voting machines that tabulate our sacred vote, are easily compromised, not fair, easily hacked. I believe it was Kamala Harris, Mike, who said that she witnessed with her own eyes as one of these machines was hacked right in front of her. We can't have machines like that counting our sacred vote. There's too much on the line. And if you look back at the primary in Georgia, and 2 counties actually, they took the results of the electronic voting machine and they had a hand count in those 2 counties. And guess what they found out? The electronic voting machine, the person who the voting machine said was number 1 and won, was actually in the hand count the 3rd place. And the 3rd place winner in the hand count, or in the voting machine count, was actually the 1st place winner in the hand count. We can't have that kind of discrepancy. Our vote is too sacred. And so we want to make sure we have a secure and honest election system, and I'll work with lawmakers to make sure that happens.
I know you've been asked about this election and whether you would abide by the results no matter what happens. Are you confident that this election cycle in Arizona will be a fair and election?
I wish I could sit here and say yes, but I'm not. We have an incompetent Secretary of State who happens to be my opponent. And I'm not the only one saying she's incompetent. The Arizona Supreme Court, in a recent ruling, called her incompetent. She's not even showing up at the office. She's only been at the office 19 days in the last 6 months, and we the people are paying her salary. She's not showing up for work, and we have some very critical elections. I'm afraid that it probably is not going to be completely fair. We look back at the August 2nd election. That was a primary election. Katie Hobbs, the incompetent Secretary of State, is the one who gave guidance to the various counties of how many ballots they would need for the primary election. And Pinal County, one of our largest counties, 1 hour into voting on election day ran out of only the Republican ballots. And they continued to run out of ballots. By the end of the day, a quarter of the polling places had run out of ballots. That's a lot of people who were disenfranchised during the primary election. And we're already finding out in this election, Mike, that there have been problems. Just this week, we found out that Hobbs, in her incompetency and maladministration, had already messed up with 6,000 ballots, the wrong ballots sent to the wrong people. And so we're seeing problem after problem. I wish I could sit here and say I have complete faith in this system. I don't have faith in this system, and that's why I'm going to work with lawmakers to come up with a way that we have secure elections, that our voting rolls are cleaned up so that we're getting rid of the people who don't live here anymore, they're not on it anymore, the people who don't exist, or the people who have passed away.
So then, just to wrap this topic, why should you be confident if you win this race that you actually did win, and other Republicans, and why would anybody vote if they're not confident that these elections are going to be fair?
Well, I think we all know we have to vote. Absolutely. We got to vote, and we got to vote in droves, and we have to send a very loud and clear message that we do want honest elections. We do want a secure border. So you have to get out and vote. And I believe that we can outvote some of the problems. We just show up en masse. We the people standing up and voting. And then we're going to make sure we fix any problems. Any loopholes for cheating we want to get rid of. We want to make sure it's very easy to vote and impossible to cheat, and we're going to accomplish that. You know, I'd be happy if they wanted to do a hand count of the election. If I win and they say, wait a minute, we want to do a hand count, I'm all for it. I want more transparency, folks. I'm all for it. I believe we're going to win, and we should win in a landslide because we've been on the campaign trail. I've been on the campaign trail with you, many of the people of Arizona, for 509 days. And wherever we go, we're drawing massive crowds. And I'm not saying that to be boastful. This isn't about me. It's about us. It's about Arizona. And we've got some serious problems. We're tired of career politicians and bureaucrats messing things up, not solving the problems, and prolonging some of the issues that we shouldn't even have to be dealing with today.
Let's move on to the topic of the economy. Can you lay out for us what your budgetary priorities would be as governor?
Well, absolutely, and thank you for asking more than just questions about the election. I appreciate that, Mike. We're going to have priorities in making sure that we have a secure border, for starters. We want to make sure we have infrastructure. We're growing as a state. As these blue states continue to push dead-end destructive policies like California and Oregon and Washington and Illinois, and I could list them all, we're watching as people are moving in, and we're watching as companies want to relocate here. And we need to have the infrastructure in place when those companies want to relocate here. So we're going to work on infrastructure, securing the border, stopping the cartels from bringing drugs across and poisoning our young people. And we're going to work on drug treatment for the homeless, because we want to make sure we're getting the homeless off our streets. We also want to invest money, and we don't think this has to be a state investment, but we want private partnership as well in properly educating our kids and preparing our high schoolers while they're in high school to get out and take some of the high-paying jobs that are out there in the trades, in the vocations, and also in career certification. You know, I just was at a program the other day where they're teaching nurses to be certified nurse assistants. You know, that's a stepping stone for another big job. Right out of high school, if you're a CNA, then you can move into becoming a registered nurse at some point in your life. But we need to start getting our kids ready for the jobs that are out there. We have a lot of priorities. We want to make sure that we're dealing with areas where there are problems in our state government. Maybe there's waste. We can pull from there and relocate to other areas in our government where we need the attention.
You had talked about a possibility of ending the food or rental tax here in Arizona.
That's right.
But there have been some small municipalities, small towns that are saying that's how they pay for critical services like fire and for police. Would the state be a part of replacing that revenue to the cities and towns, or are the cities and towns just going to have to restructure their tax format?
No, and my opponent's trying to turn that. You know, her tax plan is absolutely ridiculous, cutting taxes on a few items. You know, we're talking about really helping people, returning $500 million back into the pockets of hardworking Arizonans, money they've earned, by the way. And so we don't believe there should be a tax on food. Not every city has it, but this is an essential. We got to eat. We've got to feed our families. And so we're going to return that, and we're going to return a rental tax. People can't afford their rent right now. They're paying additional money on tax on rent. These are ways that cities have come up with to tax their citizens even more, make it harder to afford living in Arizona. So we're going to return that $500 million out of the general fund. We will reimburse the cities and the counties and help them come up with a plan over the next 5 years. We'll reimburse them for that, and then wean them off that tax, help them come up with a plan to deal with not having that tax income. And here's the issue right now. We've got the cities pulling this money from people, and with Joe Biden's inflation and with Joe Biden's economy, our citizens cannot afford life right now. They can't afford to fill gas in their car. They can't afford to put food on the table. They've got to have help. We will assist those cities and municipalities, get them a plan, but as Arizona continues to grow, we're going to watch the revenues grow, and they may not even need that money after 5 years' time.
So let's move to another critical topic and a big controversial one here in Arizona, and the topic of abortion. If the 15 weeks ban that was passed was rewritten so that it supersedes the territorial law where we are now and it crosses your desk, would you sign that 15 weeks ban?
I don't understand why it would need to be rewritten.
Well, because now it's written so that it does not supersede the territorial law that we've defaulted to. So if it is reversed, where now that is in place of the territorial law, would you sign that law?
Well, we got to see where this falls. We don't know what's going to happen. It's tied up in the courts right now. It goes back and forth. I don't want to answer a bunch of hypotheticals about what kind of legislation I would or wouldn't sign, but I've never shied away from the fact that I'm pro-life. My goal is to save as many babies as possible. And you know, when Roe v. Wade passed, and then in the decades that followed, we had many people say, look, we need to have people have access to abortion, but it needs to be safe but rare. And Mike, it's become anything but rare. Depending on the stats, we've taken the lives of 63 to 70 million babies. In New York City, as it stands, half of the half of the black babies are aborted. More babies are aborted than survive. And so it isn't rare. It's not rare anymore. And the Democrat Party has embraced anything goes abortion. You could be in labor, ready to deliver your baby that you've carried for 9 months, and if you choose to have an abortion, they're okay with that. And if you don't believe me, ask my opponent. I know she didn't have the courage to be here today, but she has finally been pinned down a couple times on that because I pressured the media to ask her. That is radical to take a baby at 9 months, and she doesn't want to stop there. When she had the opportunity to sign legislation to save a baby who would survive an abortion, to give that baby life-saving treatment, a baby who survived an abortion, she voted no on that. She would rather see a baby die on a cold metal tray. That is radical. And I'm tired of the people like Katie Hobbs, who is radical, trying to tell me that because I care about women and care about babies, that I'm radical. It's not true.
So let me clarify with you, though, because you're here, she isn't. Let's clarify, in cases of incest or rape or for the life of the mother, would you sign a piece of legislation that had those exclusions or exceptions in there?
I believe the 15-week bill does have that. I know people say it doesn't, but at 15 weeks, if you're in any of those circumstances, obviously, you're going to know you're pregnant by 4 months in, by 15 weeks in. So I believe those are in there. They like to say there's no exceptions, but with 15 weeks, there really are exceptions in there. Obviously, I want to make sure the life of the mother, absolutely. You know, I think what will happen as we see new laws taking place and we're seeing babies being protected, we're going to be locking up a lot more rapists. We're going to be locking up people who are raping. And that's a good thing that could come out of this. You know, it's horrifying to think of somebody being raped, a victim of incest, the life of a mother. I want to make sure we're helping those women. The real perpetrator, the real death sentence should go to the person who raped, not a baby.
Okay.
But we're gonna make sure that we have absolute health care for women. To call abortion health care for women, it's not health care. Let's not fool ourselves. I want to make sure we do have true health care for women. I'm from a family of 9. 8 of us are women, girls, and so I care deeply about health care for women, and the left has been trying to call abortion health care for women. I want true health care. And the problem is they always say pro-choice. They're pro-choice, Mike. There is no choice. When you walk into a Planned Parenthood, they give you one option, and that is to take the life of your baby. They don't say to you, is there anything we can do to help you keep this baby? What are the reasons you're choosing this abortion? How can we help? Perhaps we can find a loving family who wants to adopt the baby. They don't give you choices, and we need to make sure we're offering women true choices.
But as far as legislation goes, we've got 2 laws right now. Do you favor one of those 2 over the other? The territorial law or the 15 weeks ban?
I favor a law that will save as many babies as possible and help as many women as possible. We'll see what the legislature finds out. You know, I like to say this, and I've said it on the campaign trail. I'm running for governor, not emperor. My job is to follow the laws that are on the book. I'm going to be in the executive branch. We'll follow the laws that are on the book. We could do hypotheticals all day. Well, what if this happens? And what about that? And what about this? The point is we're going to follow the laws that are on the book, and we don't know at the end of the day right now where that stands. The judicial system has it right now, and we'll see what happens, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Let's jump to another big issue in Arizona. Let's talk about the border. You have stated for quite a while now, day one as governor, that you would declare an invasion at the southern border. Let's start with legal authority. Do you believe you have the legal authority to do that?
Absolutely. Article 1, Section 10, United States Constitution.
So let's jump then to the fallout. We know that there's been a history in Arizona with SB 1070, with boycotts in Arizona. We know the Super Bowl at one time was pulled over the Martin Luther King law. You would be inaugurated, you would be sworn in a month from the Super Bowl being here. If the NFL were to threaten, they're going to pull the Super Bowl if you do that, would it make you waver in your decision?
You want to tell me that a bunch of football teams owned by billionaires are okay with fentanyl pouring across our border at a record level, killing our young people? Number one killer right now is fentanyl, 18 to 45. It's killing a generation of people. If the NFL is okay with that, then they got to do some soul searching. I don't think the NFL is that stupid. I really don't.
So you wouldn't be concerned about that?
We want to make sure that we're stopping the cartels.
Okay.
No, I'm not concerned.
Okay.
The people of Arizona is who I work for. And that's why I'm here with you today, Mike. This is a job interview. This should have been a debate, and we are doing a job interview. And you, the people of Arizona, are the hiring agent. I will be working for you. And unfortunately, my opponent doesn't have the courage and doesn't have the respect for the people of Arizona to show up here, sit on this stage, and take these same questions. But I'm not going to be taking marching orders from the NFL. I'm taking marching orders from the people of Arizona who are tired of their children getting their hands on the most deadly drug this country's ever seen. Mike, I talk to parents all the time. The hardest thing in the world is having a mother come up to you and tell you that she lost her 19-year-old because he took a pill. He took one pill. He didn't know it was a fentanyl pill. He didn't know it came from Mexico, from the cartels. He's gone. Think about think about out there what you have accomplished since you were 19. There's no amount of money that can ever bring a child back who's lost his life to fentanyl. And the thing is, we don't have to have these senseless deaths. We're being poisoned by the cartels and the CCP. The communist regime out of China is behind this. And if you don't think that they can take down a civilization and a country over drugs, with drugs, then you need to do a history lesson. And you got to look at the opium wars. They brought down dynasties with drugs, and they're trying to bring this country down. I am a mama bear at heart, and I will fight tooth and nail to protect our children. I don't want to have to face another parent who's lost a 17-year-old son, a 19-year-old daughter, a 20-year-old daughter. We're losing our future, Mike. And so if the NFL has a problem with that, they're going to have to lick their wounds, because we are going to secure our border in Arizona.
Would you continue the program that's happened through Texas, Arizona, and Governor DeSantis in Florida of sending migrants to places like in sanctuary cities in the Northeast, Chicago, New York City? Would you support and continue that program?
Listen, I've said this before. I'm not making news here. I'm not in support of continuing to traffic people. You know, it was a great photo op. I got a kick out of watching Martha's Vineyard lose their mind over 50 people illegally here showing up. I'm enjoying watching the terrible mayor of New York City melt down because busloads of people here illegally have shown up. But that doesn't solve the problem. I'd rather see people bused and sent back across the border. We cannot accept the world's poor. We've got 5 million people coming in so far with Joe Biden. I think that's a low number, by the way. I think that's a low number. We just got some new numbers Friday, and they're shocking. And 1 million of the 5 million people who've come in are what they call gotaways. And a brief definition, those are people who are coming in and don't want to be processed. The majority of people coming across want to file fraudulent asylum claims. They are coming here, they want to be processed by the federal government and the Border Patrol because they want to stay forever. And with Joe Biden, he's going to probably try to let them stay forever. But 1 million have come in, maybe more, who didn't want to be caught because their background, their record, their criminal record is so heinous, they don't want to be caught. And we can't allow people like that to come into our country. And we're not going to allow that. That's why I'm going to be tough on the border.
Let me ask you one more question on this topic.
Okay.
Arizona Dreamers have been speaking out by the thousands now, saying that the delay by Washington, D.C. in finalizing status for the Dreamers, there is a huge population of Dreamers in Arizona. What is your stance on the Dreamers and what we should be doing as a country with the Dreamers?
I'm running for governor of Arizona. That's a federal issue.
Right.
And so I don't get to decide that. But what I can do is keep people from coming across the border, and that's what I plan to do.
So lastly then, let me expand then. The shipping container issue that's been done, where the state has stepped in and said, we have the legal right, they're now fighting in court. Would you continue that fight as governor?
Oh, yeah. We are going to have a legal fight on our hands. I mean, you don't think for 1 second the left and the cartels are going to pour money into attorneys to try to fight the people of Arizona who want to protect their citizens, who want a secure border? The left, that's kind of what they're good at, is called lawfare, and they will try to tie us up in court. And guess what? We're ready for it. This will go to the Supreme Court, and we will win this battle. We have the right as a state, we are sovereign, to protect our border. And we intend to do it, and we're ready for the legal fight. And we're going to figure out who's who, Mike. We're going to figure out the people who want to sue us for wanting safe streets. It's going to get sorted out real quick. Who are these people? Who's funding them? Who wants to prevent us from having safe streets? Who wants to prevent the people of Arizona from getting deadly fentanyl out of our state? I don't like being known as the state where fentanyl pours in. I want to be known as the Grand Canyon state. I want to be known as the state with the greatest people, the hardest working people in the country. I don't want to be known as the fentanyl pipeline. So we'll figure out in short order who's who and what side they're on. Are they on the side of the cartels and the narco-terrorists? Or are they on the side of the good people of this country who want safety and security back?
Let's shift to education. Arizona, I'm just going to read the statistics. Only 41% of children in Arizona are passing in English language arts, only 30% in math. What can you do specifically as governor to help those numbers get to where they need to be?
Well, it's not pouring more money at the problem. I think we're spending $8.4 billion, more than half of our state budget goes to education. So next time you hear someone saying we need more money in education, that's not the answer. I think we're going to see a lot of these problems sort themselves out, actually, with ESA for All. And I want to give the hardworking moms and dads who fought for that credit, because our legislature passed it and our governor signed it, and that is a true legacy for Governor Ducey. I'm really proud that he signed that. And that's going to be the way that we lift our curriculum up. The curriculum has not been good. We're not engaging our children's minds. I think we're teaching to the test. We want to make sure we're not doing that any longer. These are things we can do. There's nothing worse than when you can tell a teacher's just teaching to the test and you're actually not teaching the children. And so we're going to pull that kind of program where we're not having to teach to the test anymore. We're going to actually stimulate our children's brains. With ESA for All, when a parent can say, I don't like what they're teaching at this school, we're moving our child to this school, or we're going to homeschool them. Those schools, our government-run schools, are going to very quickly have to change course and up the curriculum and make for better educated kids.
So you said that you don't think we don't need to throw money at the problem. Do you think we spend too much money on education in Arizona, or do you think we're just right with what we're spending?
I think we spend too much money on things that don't make it into the classroom. When you adjust, I think teachers should have a raise. How do we keep good teachers? That's the question I always get asked. And a lot of these problems are solved with great teachers. The way we keep good teachers is we pay them what they're worth, and right now, if you adjust teachers' inflation since 1970, adjusted teachers, I should say, salary since 1970, adjust it for inflation, and this is before Joe Biden's hyperinflation. They really haven't had a pay raise since 1970, even though they have had incremental pay increases. But the administrators have shot up. We have too many administrators, and they're making way too much money. No administrator should make more than a teacher in the classroom, except maybe the principal. We need to give our teachers a higher pay, but we also have to make sure they're teaching curriculum that makes sense. You think we're going to keep a kindergarten teacher who has to teach sex education to a 5-year-old? My opponent sponsored legislation. Katie Hobbs sponsored legislation to introduce sex ed to kindergartners, to 5-year-olds. I don't know any kindergarten teacher who wanted to become a kindergarten teacher because she wanted to talk about sex with 5-year-olds. We are pushing our teachers, our good ones, out with this nonsense curriculum where we're pushing a lot of confusion, gender confusion, anti-American history on our teachers. They don't want to teach this stuff. They want to really inspire children.
So I have time for one more question. We're just
Okay.
about out of time, and it's on this. So you believe with the current budget as it is, there's enough money to give those teachers the raises they need to keep good teachers. We don't need to increase spending in Arizona.
I don't believe we do. If we're getting the money into the teachers and into the classroom, we need to get rid of some of these administrators. We have way too many of them. The bloat is there. The bloat is real. But I really want to start churning out kids who are ready for the real world. If this is the last question, I want to mention how important my dual track education plan is, which is after 10th grade, you decide if you want to go off and take that 4-year college degree path, which is great, go for it. Or if you want to get trade skill training, vocational training, and career certification in high school, we want our kids ready for that. I know you started your life with skills training as, I believe, an electrician.
Yes.
And that's something you can always fall back on. You can always fall back on it. You always have a job when you have those kind of training.
All right, we are rapidly running out of time.
Okay.
You have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Oh my gosh, Arizona, I've so enjoyed the last 509 days on the campaign trail. I loved covering you, Arizona, for nearly 30 years, but I've really loved campaigning across the state. And I want you to know, as your governor, I will show up for work every day. I'll show up early, I'll leave late, I'll roll up my sleeves, and we're going to get to work solving the big problems we have. We will bring back safe streets. We will bring back a secure border. We will stop the flow of the deadliest drug rolling through Arizona. And we're going to make sure that we get the homeless off the streets so that we can take our kiddos for a bike ride, enjoy the beautiful weather we have here in Arizona. We're going to get those people help as well. We want to make sure that as we go into this election, we're getting our neighbors out to vote, and you're getting out to vote. I ask for your vote on November 8th, and I thank you for your time today.
Kari, thank you for joining us. We
you, Mike.
appreciate the time as always, and to the voters here in Arizona, be an informed voter, and we appreciate you spending time with us today, and we look forward to seeing what the results are come November.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, thank you all for being here. It's been a great event, and we look forward to seeing the results of and thanks to the people from Clean Elections and AZTV.